Alrighty, we are now being live streamed via Facebook. So I will just begin with a short introduction about Synergia's Autism Initiative and myself. So to those joining us, my name is Tatiana Calderon. I am the Autism Initiative Coordinator here at Synergia's Metropolitan Parent Center. Just a few words about Synergia's Autism Initiative. The Autism Initiative project is funded by a grant from the New York City Council under its Autism Initiative. This project supplements the work of Synergia's Metropolitan Parent Center by bringing increased awareness to New York City residents, particularly to communities with large Spanish-speaking populations, about the growing population of children diagnosed with autism spectrum disorder. Its strong outreach components targets families of children with suspected or known diagnosis of autism spectrum disorder, ASD, who are not receiving appropriate educational, health, or other related services. The initiative will link them to other services and supports that meet the individual needs of children and family. I want to thank you all for being here today. We're absolutely thrilled that you can join us either in person or virtually, so welcome to Synergia. Before we get into it, I just want to say there will be a poll activated at the end of this presentation, so we hope those on Zoom can stick around just a little bit longer to fill that out, and that you'll be receiving a copy of the presentation in a follow-up email. It will also be available directly on Facebook should you would want to rewatch the presentation, and it will be available on our YouTube page in a few days following. So now we'll hand it over to our lovely director, Kate Dolan-Cheney, who is the director of the ASD Nest and Horizon program. Thank you, Kate.
Thank you so much. It's really nice to be with everybody here today. We're very excited to present with my colleague, Mark Corallo, who is the director of the AIMS program. We're really excited to talk about specialized programs. We have really nice offerings for students who have a classification of autism on their IEPs in all of these three programs. Okay. Sorry, technical difficulty from the jump is always fun. Okay, great. So again, I'm Kate Cheney. I'm the director of ASD Nest and Horizon. These are two, you can go to the next slide, specialized autism programs that are application driven. So families submit applications to the programs. What we want to talk about is what autism is. And autism is a neurodevelopmental disability that impacts social and language and communication. I am a speech language pathologist by training and have worked with kids with autism for 27 years. So I'm really excited. This is a passionate pursuit in my life, understanding how do we best support a different neurotype. We look at autism as being a different neurotype where communication sometimes is different. But what we're looking at is also thinking and celebrating the positives that are with autism. And it's about that unique abilities that many folks don't have and folks with autism do. And that we require some considerations when we're looking at like some of that planning for their education in regard to sensory or social or language and communication and even academic changes or supports that are put in place. But we really do want to look at this as a positive in the sense that we're here to celebrate neurodiversity and inclusion. So these are two programs that are in districts 1 through 32. Which is a little different. So if everybody here is a parent that's going through the Turning 5 process, you'll understand that there are 32 different school districts within the New York City public schools. The 32, they're local, they have a superintendent, all of those things. But what we do is we have two specialized autism programs that are in districts 1 through 32. So these are community schools where general education students go with special education students from kindergarten all the way up to 12th grade. So what we do is we recognize that some students in the program, some students with autism require a different levels of support, but there are many, many, many students that are well supported in their local community school. And that I think is something to highlight. The inclusive piece to this is, students being together is, going to promote students who have autism, have communication challenges, but also thinking about our general education peers who also might also benefit from having students that have a different way of being. So I think that's a really important thing to highlight. Again, these are, we have many different kinds of classes. We have an ICT for the NEST program, and then we have a small class for the Horizon program. So again, we're really looking at these two programs as, two distinct possibilities for students that are who have an autism classification on their IEPs. So this, I think we're going to go to the eligibility criteria, which is the next slide. So I want to preface this that when we have most of our children apply to the programs in the turning 5 or in the kindergarten year, that year preceding the kindergarten placement. Many families are, reaching out saying, I need to get private testing and I need to make sure my child has a diagnosis. The thing that I'm here today to talk to you about is that all of the testing required for the ASD programs application can be done through the Turning 5 team, meaning that your Turning 5 team is the group of psychologists that could be in your local school or someplace in your neighborhood is going to be reaching out to you after the holidays to talk about what kind of making plans to determine what kind of special education services your child would benefit from next year. That is a collaborative process for families to work with that school team to identify what kind of school does my child need to go to, what kind of class size, how many teachers, do I need speech, what's the frequency on all of those things. So that's done through the Turning 5 process. The other portion that we look at is that during that process, families can request an autism measure. In the programs, we only have to have an autism information that will support an autism classification on the IEP. So I think it's a little different. Many of our families do have diagnostics that are from their pediatrician or a developmental pediatrician. We're happy to look at that, and we want you to share that with your Turning 5 team. Because that's information. But if there are families here that suspect that their child is on the spectrum or they do not have a medical diagnosis of autism, they can request a educational, we can do the CARS or the GARS. The CARS is the Childhood Autism Rating Scale, and the GARS is the Gilliam Autism Rating Scale. And these are two autism measures that can be conducted by the Turning 5 team to determine if a child could benefit from an ASD classification, an autism classification on their IEPs. So there are 13 different classifications, and autism is one of them. Some of them can be speech and language impairment, hearing impairment, they can have physical disabilities, things of that nature. Those can be many of the different kinds of classifications that we could see on an IEP. Autism is one of them. All families can request testing during the Turning 5 or anytime during their child's tenure in a school to say, hey, we think that we want to look at autism, explore that as a possibility. And each one of the school assessment teams is able to do that. So I like to dispel the myth that if we have outside testing, our team will definitely consider it, but it's not mandatory. So there's no reason families need to go out to do private neuropsychs. We would certainly look at them if you have, but all of the testing and all of the information that we need can be gleaned and gotten through the IEP team. That's going to be your Turning 5 team. Okay. So that's the portion of the autism measure. So we're going to talk about the two programs in depth today. So we have eligibility criteria because ultimately what our goal is when we're placing students that have autism, we want to place them into the correct level of support. We never ever want to place a child into a program where we know the supports are not going to meet that child's ability. We really want to look at this in a really thoughtful way because when my team on the Central ASD team is doing a placement, we really want that placement to be a placement that's long-term, meaning that that's the right level of support. Because when a child is placed in the incorrect program, we will see behaviors and language challenges that aren't being supported in the way that they could be in a different program. So I just like to talk about that these are two programs that are applied through one application. So when you're applying to ASD programs, you're applying to both the NEST and Horizon program. Our team, the central team, will make a determination on which level of support your child needs and which program that would be in. So I think that's important. So just naming for everybody. But we do want, when we're looking at understanding how we're placing students in programs and really picking the program that's going to be the right level of support, we're going to look at a bunch of different areas. So we're looking at cognition, which is that understanding, that's that intelligence level. We're also looking at instruction and achievement. That's the academics that are going on in preschool. They'll do some measures around that. We're going to definitely look at language. That is a speech pathologist. You know, we know that so communication is a challenge for kids with autism. And in this regard, we really want to understand a lot about their language. The other portion we're going to look at is social. We know that people with autism and autistic folks can have some challenges around social functioning. And it just looks different, but we want to understand what that looks like for our kids. And we're going to talk about behavior because I'm also dispelling the myth. Children with autism have behavior just like everybody else. What we do in the programs is that we're looking at this in a way to understand that behavior is communication. So a child is doing something because they need us to do something for them. So if I'm throwing something on the floor, it's because I don't like it, and maybe I need you to come over and help me. Or it could be many different facets. Those things we want to understand what the function of behavior is. So let's start with the NEST program. We're going to quickly go down, and I will talk about this in depth. So when we're looking for students that are applying to the NEST program, these are students that have average to high average IQs. This is a very unique profile. This is not a profile we see all that often. It is a profile of a student. Most students with autism have communication deficits. Students that are well supported in the NEST program are kids that really do not have receptive and expressive language challenges, and their primary area of challenge is around social. So it's a very unique program in that regard, that the profile is one that is very specific. When we see it, we know it, but we look at this also. So we have an average to high average IQ. These are students that are well supported, have academics that are on or above grade level. You know, those are things that we also could see. Splinter skills in some of the areas of academics. We have kids that are reading at a very high level. We're not sure about their comprehension, but students in the NEST program typically have good reading comprehension. And these are students that can work independently throughout the day. These are kids that might gravitate more towards adults. They might really need support around the social, like misunderstanding of some of the social things that go on. Those are the things that we'll see. And they also are students that usually do not require the support of a paraprofessional to help them maintain in a program, like in a classroom, like be part of that instruction. So there's that portion there that there's a high level of independence. In regard to their language, again, as a speech therapist, these are things that we look at. So we have receptive is understanding, expressive language is the production and how we're using our language. And then we have pragmatics or social communication. So there's three real domains that we look at with speech. Kids in the NEST program are kids that typically do not have receptive and expressive language challenges. These are kids that, you know, understand everything and are like super chatty. They are talking all the time, blah, 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 all the time. And then they literally really are just not getting the ability, understanding the social rules for that. So like not picking up that somebody doesn't want to talk about their special interest, those kinds of things. Those are things that we'll look at. And we see that through the speech reports. We are going to look at social as being mild to moderate delay or differences. It's about that, looking at how they're interacting with groups. As I said before, these are kids that typically will gravitate towards adults or sometimes very young children because they'll listen to them. But we can see there's an area of challenge around like the rigidity and also like sometimes like not understanding that social rules that we seem to all kind of get. Our kids with autism sometimes struggle with that. We're looking at behavior. These are kids that are going to demonstrate mild behavioral challenges around autism. These are symptoms of autism. And as I said previously, we're looking at students that their behavior is communicating something to us. So I either need attention, I need assistance, I need something to be done for me. So we look at that in the program as a really like high level portion of that. We're going to go to the ASD Horizon program, which is next. I just want to be mindful of time. As a speech therapist, I can talk a lot. So we have for the Horizon program are students, it's a 8-to-1-to-1 small class option in a community school, which is really amazing. So we have this smaller class that has 8 students that have a classification of autism, a special education teacher, and a programmatic para. The kids that are well supported in the Horizon program are kids that have below average, like borderline IQ, and to average. So we're looking at this, that there's some carryover between the two. what we look at here is in regard to the instruction is that these are the academics are on or approaching grade level. So when we're looking at it, these are students that might need to have more repetition. They might need to have things read over and over again before they get that processing going so that they're understanding. They're going to look at, we are a positive behavioral support program for both Nest and Horizon. So we're positive, proactive behavioral support. So we do adhere to the philosophies of ABA, which is really important in the Horizon program. So we do have students that things are broken down into really small increments, and they're being praised, and we're working to increase their motivation to participate. And that's something that's really important. So we do really adhere to the philosophies of ABA, but we're not a discrete trial program. Communication, children typically have communication that they're speaking in small phrases. They're able to answer some WH questions. They are able to express their wants and needs. They're able to, maybe have some echolalia. There are some students that do require a communication device. If there is a communication device, our team will do extensive research about your child to understand what that communication, how the device is, how they're using it. Is it like how is that part of your child? Because that communication device is their voice. So we want to understand how that's working. We're going to look at the social functioning, just like Nest kids. We're going to have social communication things with that social functioning. So these are kids that might want to be more solitary. They might have difficulty joining into little groups, and they would demonstrate mild to moderate behavioral challenges. So these are students, because there's more receptive and expressive language challenges with Horizon students, they might have more behavior because they have less verbal communication, or they can access that language at a really specific time. So we also know that when our kids are stressed, that language goes away for both Nest and Horizon. Okay. So again, the Nest, we're just going to do a very high level overview of this. So the Nest is a reduced size ICT, integrated co-teaching class. So that has 2 teachers, a special ed teacher and a general education teacher. They both of the teachers we're looking at as the team are both Nest trained. So meaning that we do our training through NYU. We look at this as a partnership. We want to make sure. Yeah. Oh, okay. Sure. Okay. The special education teacher and the general education teacher both receive pre-service and ongoing professional development from NYU. So that's a really important thing to understand, that this is like a program that when we have in a school, we're training everybody so that everybody's aware of what the programmatic foundations are, but also how are we going to support our kids as they mature. I think that's a really important thing to look at, is it really about the level of training that goes into both Nest and Horizon, and also Ames when you hear from Mark later. We're going to look at that these are children that are participating in the general education curriculum. It's just going to be a different class size. So you'll have the same, you're going to have the same curriculum in kindergarten that the general education students have, but also in high school, these are students that are taking Regents. They're getting the same curriculum that other kids in high school are getting. They also have the opportunity to take AP classes as well. The foundation for the Nest program is a portion of the social development intervention. That's SDI is I would say kind of the cornerstone of the Nest program is really around the speech mandate. So SDI is a robust mandate where we have a speech language pathologist who delivers social intervention to the 4 Nest kids, if we're talking about kindergarten, and their teachers. So they would come 5 times a week for kindergarten, and we work on social. It's a wraparound piece here where we have the integration of having the teachers participate so that we can carry over that social communication inside the classroom. Again, NYU supports the Nest teams with professional development and instructional support at the school level. We have the Horizon program, which is the 8 to 1-to-1 small class option in a community school. I think the thing I like to talk most about with the Horizon program is that the children in this class get the same grade level curriculum that's at the grade level. So if you're in 3rd grade, you're getting the 3rd grade curriculum. They're on the same scope and sequence. They're just having it delivered in a smaller class. That makes sense. So this is the thing. This is an academic program with the autism support. So our kids are getting that curriculum just in a different kind of classroom setting. So that portion of it is that they are able to, the classroom is modified in the way that it's thinking about the autistic learner. We're looking at distractions, we're looking at noise, we're looking at sensory, we're having things broken down, visuals. All these things are both in Nest and Horizon, but in Horizon in particular, the classroom design is very specific because we have students that need to take breaks. We need students that that can work in small groups, but maybe need to work independently for a portion. So we're really important with that portion. I think the piece that we look at with the Horizon classroom, the grade level curricula is really the biggest piece here. That also for high school, our kids in the Horizon program are going to high school and taking Regents and AP classes as well. They're just maybe having some of their classes in different areas. They have flex programming. So it's really important to understand that. Again, the classroom teachers and the programmatic team, like the paraprofessional, the speech pathologist, OT, guidance counselor, social worker, administration. These are folks that are all getting pre-service training and ongoing professional development. We have a team of instructional coaches for the Horizon program that provide very intensive in-school supports for the teachers and the classrooms, meaning that they're going in to do in-school coaching, almost weekly, so that we're building on the capacity of the team, but also like thinking about if we need to put supports in place, how can we do that? So we have that central coach comes in. We also, these are also the folks that do all our professional development. Very proud of the Horizon program. If you can see that, it's a way we do a very intensive training in the summer, but we also do ongoing professional development for our teams because we know the more you know, the better you do. So we also have Rethink Ed as an online resource, and it's available to all of our Horizon programs. Again, when I talked about the classroom design before, I think that this is something for both Nest and Horizon that is going to look a little different, is that we're really thinking about the autistic learner. The pieces is that we're going to look at the visual. Things should be tidy. Things should be, we shouldn't have banners up from, the first day of school and it's March. Those kinds of things. We want to be thoughtful of that. Autistic learners sometimes need to have things in a more concrete way. It might need to be visualized differently than their other peers would be, but those are the supports that are going to work for everybody. It's like, so we write it down, it's a visual, it can support not only the Nest kids, but the Horizon kids and also the general education students as well. We're going to look at like the clearly defined work areas. We're going to have flexible seating in collaboration with the OTs and quiet corners for all students. I think that's the one thing that we talk about in the programs a lot, is that once a school has either a Nest or Horizon program, that quiet corner becomes like something that leaches out and everybody has one, because we also realize that sensory for all children is a challenge. And then thinking about how we can have that quiet corner where kids can learn how to self-regulate. That's the piece. It's not that we have a corner that we can just hide out in. This is a corner that you go to actually learn how to self-regulate. So it's like a couple of facets there. We look at, I have to understand I need a break. And then what do I do when I need a break? Those are the things so I can get myself back to an area where I'm able to go. And that's it. So flexible seating options are going to be ones where the children can have like bumpy seats, they can have standing chairs. Like it really is contingent on what the child needs. Not everybody has to have it, but if it needs to, kids can have it, like, they stand up. We're also going to be like, the teachers are going to understand our kids need to move. Like, it's not like we can all sit in rows like we did, that children need to get up and have movement breaks. So all those kinds of things that go on. Okay.
Right before you get started, Mark, just so the people on Zoom are aware, Mark will be presenting on the AIMS program. I just want to point out as well, if you have questions, we will have a Q&A session at the end. So just hold those questions in. And for those here in person, if you have a question, just please raise your hand and I'll pass you the mic just so our audience in Zoom can also hear the question and be included. Thank you. One second for those on Zoom. We're having a little bit of technical difficulties.
Sure. Testing, testing. Okay. Okay. So thanks, everyone. My name is Mark Corallo. Similar to Kate, I am also a speech therapist. I have also been working with children with autism for about, I think, the same time. Kate and I went to school together. So I think it's interesting how our careers have come together. So yes, I'm the director of the AIMS program, and AIMS stands for Acquisition, Integration, Meaningful Communication, and Social Skills. As of now, most of the AIMS programs are in District 75 schools, and there are 2 community schools that house the AIMS program right now, which I will discuss as well. Okay. So the AIMS program is currently a kindergarten through 2nd grade program. And the delivery of instruction for the program is also based on applied behavior analysis, but it's a specific branch of applied behavior analysis. It's what's called verbal behavior. And verbal behavior really focuses on teaching children language and communication. So this classroom is different than a Horizon classroom in the sense that the profile of the student is different. And we're really looking at a classroom that is much more therapeutic in nature as opposed to academic. What we're looking here is at functional skill development, really focusing on language, communication, very early social skills, and activities of daily living in order to support those prerequisite early skills that children may not have acquired as of yet. Okay, so in the classroom, you will often see a special education teacher. There is a full-time speech and language therapist in the classroom. There is a board-certified behavior analyst who oversees and supports the classroom team, and I'm going to discuss everyone's role. And then the program comes with 1 paraprofessional and health paraprofessionals as needed. Kate was talking earlier a bit about behavior. And of course, all children at any time can exhibit behaviors. What we want to make sure of, and as Kate had mentioned, is that we want to make sure that our program is set up to support those behaviors. So sometimes we do get a question around levels of behavior. And what we often find in the program is if a child has extreme, intense, challenging behaviors that really require more one-to-one support with a one-to-one crisis behavior para, most often that's when our team would discuss with the family and or other individuals as to whether the program would be able to support or not. And again, as of right now, we accept applications during the Turning 5 process in kindergarten and in the 1st grade. As children are transitioning to the 2nd grade, our team does not accept applications because it wouldn't allot for a specific amount of that time for the child to really receive the interventions that we want to provide within the program. Just to discuss, I'm sorry, Tatiana, if we can go back 1 second. So within a classroom, what you would see pretty much is the classroom teacher providing one-to-one and small group instruction, as well as the speech and language therapist. And the goal is to really generalize all of the skills that are being taught. So if a classroom teacher is working on a specific target, the speech and language therapist may also be working on that target. They might just be working on it in addition to what's being worked on in that one-to-one instruction so that they can generalize this skill. So generalization is a fancy word for learning something across settings and across people. So if children have communication deficits and they're not using that language, what our goal is to be able to help children establish functional communication systems so that they can use those systems across people and across settings. That's really one of the key factors of the program. And again, that's really where the classroom teacher and the speech and language therapist work hand in hand with one another. The board certified behavior analyst supports the classroom team in data collection, teaching procedures around applied behavior analysis, looking how to modify any challenging behaviors or how to implement appropriate teaching procedures if there are challenges for that child, as well as really creating an environment that's fun, because that's the goal. We learn through fun. And this is a therapeutic classroom. So you will see some differences as opposed to what you would see in a whole group classroom. You would see play-based instruction going on. You would see creation of communication opportunities happening throughout the day. You would see occupational therapists working alongside the classroom team in addition to pulling out. So it's a collaborative classroom. Okay. Okay, so as I had mentioned, it's established to address developmental and functional skills in the areas of language, communication, activities of daily living, and meaningful pre-academics for children with moderate to severe autism. And as I had mentioned, it's also through verbal behavior, which is a branch of applied behavior analysis. And it's a collaborative model between related service providers and the classroom teacher. Okay, so this is a bit of an example of what you would see for the profile. So Kate had mentioned receptive and expressive language. So in our program, these are really the tenets of what we would be focusing on teaching. So receptive language and expressive language are key components that are needed to learn to access academics, to navigate your environment, to understand your world around you. So as a language-based program, we are looking again at supporting the development of receptive language, expressive language, really early language skills. So can children engage with one another jointly? Is there an adult there to facilitate those interactions? Are children learning how to turn take with one another? Are they sharing objects with one another? Are they making requests from their peers? You know, a lot of interventions that are provided for children, especially in early intervention and even in preschool, are very adult driven. So we want to start those very early learning forms of social skill acquisition. That's where we bring in joint attention and engagement. As part of that, we really look at key reinforcers and highly motivating activities that will support the learning process for our students in the program. Some skills that you might see targeted would be imitation skills, requesting. Imitation could be in the form of gross motor, fine motor, following directions in their environment. How do they navigate their environment? Can they follow a visual schedule independently? And then some of the activities of daily living that you might see are kids able to go to the bathroom by themselves? If they have any feeding issues, can they self-feed? If they're a picky eater, is the team working collaboratively to support and broaden food preferences? Can they dress themselves? Some of our students can undress themselves, but they need a lot of help in learning how to dress themselves. And then other meaningful skills. All right, so if offered a seat in the program, families have the opportunity to visit, and the application process is very similar across programs. Sorry, Slow? Sure. Sorry, Kate, you and I seem to have the same character trait. So in terms of the program, what often happens is families will apply, and then we receive the applications. Our team does review profiles, and then if the profile is able to be supported, then our team will conduct a clinical observation based on the profile. And during the initial steps, we reach out to families to discuss the program, discuss the offerings, explain the clinical observation component and what that looks like. Normally, it's either myself, a school psychologist, or a BCBA from our team who will conduct the observation. And then it is a determination as to whether the program is appropriate or not. And then what we do at that point is contact the family to let them know the outcomes of the observation. Usually the outcomes from the observation, there are really three outcomes. One being, yes, the program is appropriate and can support, or the student might need more support or less, depending on the profile and what the child needs. Okay. And once the child is there, if the child is a part of our program, we usually then implement our instruction through what's called the ABLES-R, which is the Assessment of Basic Language and Learning. And that is a targeted skill-based assessment and curriculum guide that's used to teach the children in the program. Our email is different, so if you are interested in applying to the AIMS program, our email is provided on the slide below at aimsprogram@schools.nyc.gov. Right. And if you're applying, Kate had mentioned the other, these are the additional programs that are offered as part of specialized programs. So in addition to ASD programs, we also have the ACES program, the iRead program, and PATH programs. Those are overseen by some of our other colleagues who are not with us today. Bilingual special education is also a part of our program as well. And if you need further information, our information will be available, and you can also find it on the New York City Public School website. under specialized programs. Kate, do you want to take this back or? Okay.
Oh, yep. Hi. Sorry, we skipped over the application process for the ASD programs, Nest and Horizon. And I think it's really valuable for families, especially if they're going through the Turning 5 process, to understand what the protocol, like what our procedures are, like what's that timeline look like. So again, if we could go back just 2 more. Thank you. Nope. Okay, sorry. Okay. Okay, so I just want, so families are going to submit an application. There's one application for both programs. So you submit an ASD programs application. What will happen is that our team will do a clinical review. What we like to see with students that are coming in for the Turning 5 program, the process is, number one, the Turning 5 teams are going to be reaching out to you very shortly because your children are all children who maybe have an IEP for CPSE. So they've been identified as a child who has an IEP, who needs to, so essentially what we're going to do this spring is determine collaboratively with you, what kind of special education services your child needs or doesn't need next year when they join kindergarten. So our process really lines up around, like alongside of that. So we think it's really important if you've submitted an ASD Nest or Horizon application, the ASD application, you should let your Turning 5 team know. That's one thing that we do. It tells the team that we are considering an ASD program, that you're very interested in exploring that, because sometimes we need to get new assessments. Again, when I said before, we might need to get an autism measure if you don't have one, or we might need to get updated assessments in regard to their cognition. So like, meaning we might need an IQ score or an academic measure. What we can do is work with the IEP team, that Turning 5 team, to make sure that those assessments are done. So there is no need to go out to get private neuropsychs. If you have them, you're entitled to get that and we will consider it. But all of the information we can get to apply for the programs can be done through the Turning 5 team, okay? What's going to happen is that we will review the application. If we feel that your child can be supported in either the Nest or the Horizon program, that package gets sent to the school that has a vacancy. So what we do is all the seats are all open for kindergarten. So the teams will come out to do an observation at your child's school, really to understand more about your child. We get a very good picture from the information we have through testing and through conversations, potentially with talking to a speech therapist to find out more about your child's language. But then what we would do then is the team would go out to do an observation really to confirm what we know, but also see what's working and potentially what's not working for your child, because essentially, like, we want to make sure that we are providing the right level of support. So if there's something that's working in a preschool, it's great for the team to see that. Those are things that can happen really through that process. So we do an observation, and if we feel that your child can be supported in the program, families are invited into a school to take a tour once your child has been accepted. I like to talk to families about that. We're really not private. We are really conscious of understanding that tours are very disruptive to instruction. And so when I talk to families about this, I say, we only really invite new families into the program to see, because we really want to be, aware that a tour into a classroom is disruptive for all students, not just the Nest or Horizon students. So that's one thing, that families get to visit a program once they've been accepted. And then if you're accepting the program, we will then work with the Turning 5 team to update the IEP to make sure that child, number one, has transportation, because many of our specialized programs are not in your local school. So that would necessitate having transportation added. Students that are in ASD, Nest and Horizon and AIMS are also entitled to this specialized transportation. So that's an IEP recommendation that's done, but we would also for Nest update the ICT recommendations for the school, like what their frequencies for math, ELA, science, and social studies are, but also to add the SDI mandate. And for Horizon to change whatever that placement was to an 8-to-1-to-1, which is the Horizon program. And that we have then add the social curriculum, which I did not mention before in Horizon. We have a 1 time a week social curriculum group that's run through the speech mandate, where the speech pathologist works with the 8 students and the teacher and the paraprofessional on social communication inside of the Horizon classroom. It's a really awesome portion of the program because we understand that the social is a really, integral part of like working on supporting and highlighting social for our kids. We really want to make sure that we're aware of that. So that is a portion that we would look at if we're updating a Nest or Horizon IEP. That would be done, hopefully. What we do is we work really hard to make sure that we're working with your IEP teams to have that done before the closeout of the year, meaning that the school year will end so that you'll be all set for September if you're coming into a program.
Kate, I just wanted to add, so it's great when I hear you talk because then I realize what I miss. So just to let families know, Horizon at the moment and Nest is a much larger program than the Ames program. The Ames program is still extremely small. We have a very limited footprint around the city as of right now. So last year we received a tremendous amount of application. So what often happens on our end, just to speak to the T5 process, is a common question that our team will get in the event of whether the program is able to support or not, is a question around next steps. And so specialized programs works alongside T5, the T5 process. So what will often happen is in the event that there are specific questions related to the IEP, in the event that the child is not a part of the program for whatever reasons, our team will then defer back to the T5 team because they're the ones who are working closely with you. Yes.
So my question is, I read on the PowerPoint, it says that you guys Ames supports children from grades K-2. What happens after they?
Such a common question. Such a common question, right? So it's very individualized for each child, to be honest with you. Initially, when the program was first started, it was started in District 75 schools that had pre-existing ABA VB classrooms, right? So it's a very, very small ratio, and instruction is very individualized. So a lot of the articulation process is really going to look at what levels of support your child would need by the third grade. So for example, we're really looking at where they're at in their receptive, expressive, and social communication. And then what the team works very closely together on is the data based on what they've taken off of the ABLES-R, as well as the qualitative data that's happening in the related services, to say, okay, can this child function in a less restrictive environment? And then what will that less restrictive environment look like? Can it be an 8 to 1 to 1? Has this child received enough one-to-one instruction where within the Ames program where we have seen a shift and they're learning more in small group, or they might be able to learn in a larger group? And those are the considerations and the questions that the teams usually make regarding what that transition will look like into the third grade. So it's not a straightforward answer. It's pretty different depending on who your child is and what the rate of acquisition is in regard to their learning and their language. Okay.
Thank you, Mark.
Sure.
So I guess this is the time to open up the floor to questions. So for those here in person, if you have a question, please raise your hand. I'll bring the microphone to you so our attendees through Zoom can hear your question as well. Once we've concluded with the questions in person, I will be reading the questions that our Zoom attendees are putting in the Q&A box as well as the chat. All right. So let's go ahead. If anybody has a question, just let me know.
Thank you so much for this presentation. Incredibly helpful. Actually answered a lot of questions I had. My name is Didi. My son Gabriel is in the turning 5 process right now. And I had a question about, I have several questions, but one of the questions has to do with the timeline of the program itself in terms of 12 months versus 10 months and what happens during those summers.
Great question. So I'm going to speak for the ASD Nest and Horizon programs. So we are a 10-month program with 12-month related services. So that means we have a truncated summer camp kind of. So for the Nest and Horizon students, they're eligible to come to receive their related services with Nest and Horizon trained folks, and in their zones, it may be in their school, but also maybe in their affiliated site. And what that looks like is they go 4 days a week for 4 hours a day for 4 weeks. So it's from 8 to 12 Monday through Thursday for 4 weeks. And it's really about a camp-like portion to carry over the social. We really look at this as a way for our students to have interactions with each other, being with each other as much as possible. So like not being pulled out for a million related services one-to-one. We want to look at this as an opportunity to work on social, being together to be supported in those social interactions while not having academics around is amazing. Our students are really have benefited from this program. It's been from kindergarten to 8th grade. We've been able to do that for. So that is an opportunity for the 10-month program, 12-month related services.
And it's a little different for District 75, but because the program is in community schools and in District 75 schools, that looks a little different. Most children who attend a District 75 school usually receive services for the full 12 months. Most teachers have the option to work the summer if they so choose. If not, they work a 10-month contract and then they have the summer off. So similarly to Kate's program, our programs in a community school, most of our children will go 4 days. Within the programs that we've had so far, some of our staff who have worked during the school year have also supported the classrooms during the summer month in the community school, usually it being the BCBA and or a related service provider. If there is different staff, it is a little more camp recreational like for the summer. In a District 75 program, they call that Chapter 683. And again, children come, the difference between a community school summer program and a District 75 is I believe it's an hour longer and it's 5 days as opposed to 4. That's really the difference. But you still may have some shifts in staff as well.
Hi, my name is Godlive and my child is Imani. I mean, I have a better understanding now about Nest and Horizon. She's already in an ICT class, which is, I understand, is part of Nest. I was a little confused, but my question is, my daughter is an early reader. She studied like before 2, and she lacks social skills, obviously, but she is gifted, I believe. And I'm wondering, how would you combine like the gifted and talented program with the ICT class that she's already in? How would we like support the skills that she already has, because she's a little bit higher than where she is? How would I combine that? How would I work?
Okay, so we are not, the ASD Nest program and Horizon programs are not gifted and talented programs, but we have many children in these programs that have academics and intelligence that might be supported in a gifted and talented program. So I think the portion that we look at is the level of support and the training that the teachers get. Like we're looking at that with this understanding of what the program model is. It's about advocacy, about supporting autistic learners and children to be their best selves. So there's a portion of it when we look at when our kids have difficulty in a classroom, they sometimes freeze or they'll say no. That's a common thing that we'll see. I mean, that's advocating for yourself. But sometimes what ends up happening is that people misinterpret that, or a teacher can misinterpret that who is not familiar with how to work with students with autism. And that's where I think the difference is that, they can kind of characterize children as being defiant because they said no. I don't look at that as being defiant. I also think that some of our kids don't follow directions the first time. That understanding that our autistic kids need to hear things maybe more than once, or that they need to see it, that it's just not a verbal direction. So I think that portion of it is, I think understanding that the speech and language portion, what that's supported on the social is really important. Prior to being, as I said before, I've been a speech pathologist for 27 years. Prior to coming to the NEST program in 2011, as a provider. So I've done this work. I had an amazing career. I knew a lot about social communication. I learned more and had a very different, eye-opening experience coming in to work in the NEST program, because it was a concentration on where are we getting our information from? We're getting our information from adult self-advocates who are telling us, adults with autism are telling us how to help, what they would have benefited from when they were young. So we're looking at those things and saying, why is this important? And I think that that's a portion of it. Many of our kids with autism do really well in gifted and talented. It really is an individual choice. For families, I don't want to say like, you know, that one is better than the other. It really has to make sense for your child. Okay.
Hi, my name is Heather, and my son is Samuel Springs, also in the Turning 5 process. My question is around language assessment.
Mhm.
So we had a delay in receiving services, and my son has been, I guess, diagnosed as like a Gestalt language speaker, and was speaking in scripts a lot. But since having appropriate services in place, he's made leaps and bounds. And so I'm just wondering, how do you assess with the Horizon Nest application? Are you looking at former evaluations? Are you only considering the upcoming evaluation?
We look at everything.
Look at everything.
So one of the things that we do, and this is what COVID taught us, is that we had many kids that were unable to be tested. So we had to become detectives. We were like kid detectives. We were like, what can we find out about this student to make sure that they were getting? So I do look at that. My team, when they do clinical reviews, are really looking at, you know, we're looking at things to inform our decision making. So, oh, sure. Hi, sorry. We're looking at the testing as a portion of this. It's not the be all and end all. It does give us information about a student. It doesn't mean that that's all it is. It's a snapshot.
Yeah.
So we get that. You know, we've had kids that have not done well on their testing because it was a bad day. I was sick, you know, all of that. When we have conversations with families about that, we want to make sure that we're hearing that if that's a case there, but also we're looking at like talking to the speech therapist or reading the progress notes that are coming from. I mean, I've read progress notes where I've seen discrepancies between what the speech therapist is telling me in a report and what I actually saw on a psycho ed, where it was like, wait, this isn't matching up. So then we need to like find out more, like understanding that typically what we will see is that there will be like commensurate things going on in both areas. So we should see some lining up in the psychoeducational where this IQ is matching up with some of the speech things, because they're looking at every aspect of your child in a cognitive testing and an academic testing. So we do see some similarities. It doesn't mean, you know, you'll definitely get more around speech and language from a speech assessment. So we really do want to look and find out. And we also get that many of our kids make the most progress in this last year. Between 4 and 5, we've seen students that have been, you know, barely verbal or like limited language before that. Then all of a sudden, like a burst of language comes in and it's like, wow. So we really do look at that in a really holistic way, you know, but it is through, if there has been like significant gains, we want to hear about it. Okay.
Amazing. Okay. Thank you.
I really learned a lot about the Horizon program in particular through this process, which I found very helpful. And I had 2 Horizon related questions. The first question is, I noticed that there was in the criteria, one of the, in terms of, I guess, academic level or cognitive level, it was approaching or at grade level. Is there space in Horizon for a child who is above grade level, but really does benefit from some of the supports that you're outlining and in other ways maybe fits into the Horizon profile quite well?
I think yes and no. I think we have to really understand that child, because part of it is that, you know, many of our kids, you know, coming into a more supported classroom would be, you know, enough to make sure that they could stay in an ICT or versus a Horizon placement. The other thing that I want to just preface too is that in the Horizon program, it's not like they're in that 8 to 1 to 1 all day. Some of our kids are, you know, have flexible programming when it's right for them. So if we have a kid that has high math, like, you know, they are, once we have more information about them, we have many students that have flex programming into the larger ICT or gen ed class with support, because we don't want to limit. The portion is that if they can go into the reading class, they should, and because that's inclusion and that's what we want to make sure happens. But it has to be done thoughtfully with preparation and with parent on like input, because we want to make sure that it's successful.
That was actually my second
Yeah.
question.
Okay.
Because I'd heard from some parents online about being in a Horizon program and having the ability to be in an integrated class for certain class subjects at a later stage. I wanted to know if that was true of all Horizon programs or only select.
It's all. And it's really contingent on really if it's right for your child. We're always going to be looking for that. I mean, I think the piece of it is that we want to make sure that your child is getting the right level of support and that it's successful. And that's coming through that conversation, the planning, making sure that a child is really ready for it, and that they're primed for this to be successful. So that's one thing. It might not happen in the first year. What we look at in the Horizon program, especially for kindergarten, is we're really teaching routines, because that portion of being in that smaller class with lots of support helps to build the competency of like, hey, I'm able to now understand what the rules are, or I'm understand like what the routines are. This is how I'm going to complete tasks. And hopefully, we're always looking for LRA, which is least restrictive environment. But also we want to make sure that it makes sense.
And I think just to Kate's point, and Heather, just to your question earlier, because it's also applicable for AIMS, particularly with language, it's very much a holistic assessment, because, especially for children who are part of the T5 process, because when our team is reviewing a profile or a student profile, reports or assessments are going to give us some information, but it really doesn't depict who that child is. So more often than not, that's where our team will often then reach out to school teams who are currently working with the child, interview the SLP or the classroom teacher to probe, to get some further information as to what those skills are, to then help further determine if the program can support.
Thank you. So I'm just going to read a few questions now from our Q&A box, just to give a chance to our Zoom viewers to also ask their questions. So I have a question from Ms. Karina Garcia. So she states, about the AIMS, why the strategies used in this program are not available for higher grades? Our kids with disabilities usually have a number age, but their cognitive development is very much behind. So a child could be 8 years old, but perform like a 3 to 4 year old and is in the 4th grade already.
That's a good question. I think it's more, so there has been lots of talk really around ABA in our schools, particularly for children who require that level of support and that type of intervention. And again, that's one form of intervention. I think to answer that question in a manner, some of it is a bit more child specific, but that's really where if it's a child who's in the turning 5 process or in a particular school where we want to support families in, number one, doing the research and understanding the types of intervention that would best support their child. And then number two, having those conversations with the school to determine if that level of support and that type of intervention can be provided. Many of our schools do provide that intervention, and many of our schools do not. And it is that's where we can have conversations with families to help support and guide them in further looking into the types of schools that do offer that intervention, if it's appropriate for their child.
Thank you, Mark.
Sure.
We do have another question about AIMS from Kit Lung. Does the AIMS program teach academic, and where can we find schools that have the AIMS program?
So as of right now, the AIMS program is in, I'm going to give you the list of schools. They are very small. So in Staten Island, there's one, it's at 37R. Brooklyn currently has 2 locations, 231K and 958K. Queens has 2 schools, 277Q and 195Q. The Bronx has 1 location, 10X, and Manhattan still has 1 location at P138M. As of right now, when we talk about academics, we speak about academics from both a language and functional standpoint. Academics is a very broad term. It's just what's meaningful and appropriate for your child. So in an AIMS program, if there's a child that really needs to establish functional communication, our team would look at that as a priority over learning math in an embedded curriculum.
Thank you, Mark.
Sure.
And we have a question for Kate from Ron Wu. If my child is in 3K now, when should we have him tested for the NEST program?
Okay. I like people who are very proactive. So the one thing I'm going to say is that for those applications, they should be applying in the fall of 2025, because that would mean that would be, and that's, I'm not a math person, so I'm hopeful that that's the turning 5 year. So the fall of the year that the child of the turning 5 year is going to be when they're going to reach out. I'm going to say that's, we want to have the assessments, like if we're looking at cognition, like the cognitive testing, the psychoed, we want to have as close to the turning 5 year as possible. Like meaning testing now as versus testing later, because part of it is kids change in a year and a half. So what we like to say is like, hey, if you're going to do testing, do it in the late fall, early winter. So that during that turning 5 process where we can get the opportunity to really see all of the gains. Because as we said before, kids can change really quickly when they have a burst or when they've received the correct level of support.
Okay.
No problem.
We also have another question that says, when should a parent apply to NEST/Horizon program for middle school? The student has been offered Horizon before, but could not use the spot due to personal circumstances at the time.
Okay. So that's a great question, because I don't think we really covered that. So in the ASD programs, we do the bulk of our admissions is in the kindergarten year, but we also do accept applications on a rolling basis. So that is, so we can have families can submit applications for, early elementary. We might not have all the vacancies that we would at when we were in kindergarten. But we also accept applications for middle and high school. The piece that's different about that is that our ASD Nest and Horizon middle school and high school students who are in 5th and 8th grade have the ability to rank Nest and Horizon high schools and middle schools on their My Schools application. So just like you have a My Schools application for kindergarten, you're going to have one for middle and high school. We work on applications once we've identified for new students or kids that are coming back into a program once we've placed our Nest and Horizon middle school and high school students.
Thank you, Kate. So I'm going to move on to a few questions that we have in the chat. Those were from our Q&A box. Miss Rachel says, hello. Question. Could parents apply to ASD Nest, Horizon, and Ames? What happens if your child falls into Horizon and Ames? Would the parents have a choice of which program to enroll them into? Or if one program accepts you and the other won't, should we apply now or wait for the T5 team? Is there a choice of which location they can go to, depending, I guess, on the program?
It's a good question.
It is a good question.
It's a good
I
question.
think the piece is that my thoughts are that if you want to apply to all three, feel free. Well, it's the 2 applications, one to ASD programs and to Ames. The piece is that what we're going to be looking for is for students coming into Horizon, are they ready for that academic demands? Because in kindergarten, our students in the Horizon program are getting the curriculum day one of what's going on in kindergarten. So that means they're doing reading, they're doing letter recognition, they're learning all of those things that we would learn in kindergarten, just in a different kind of a classroom setting with a teacher that understands that child's on the spectrum. So I really do think that these are programs that need to fit what your child's ability is, as opposed to your child fitting the program. That's what I'm always going to say to parents is that we really want to make sure that the levels of support are correct for your child. And that would be determined through this review process, because both of our teams are very skilled because we know the program so intimately, like we know what levels of support can be supported. And, I always would encourage families to apply for everything.
And just to speak to that a bit, and I think a lot of the times when you hear autism programming, that can be confusing for families, right? Because human first, right? So even though there's a diagnosis, we still want to look at what the levels of support are, and will that program be able to support your child for who that individual is? So I think to further support Kate's answer, Kate was talking about academics, and there was an earlier question around academics for Ames. What academics might look like in Ames is there's various domains that are taught all language based. Math might look something more like understanding quantity or more or how many or sorting, because those are very early learning skills. And that would really be the difference between an AIMS program as opposed to a Horizon program, where the kids would have more language ability to be able to be ready for the academic component.
Yep. And then we have a few similar questions in the chat of, is there a way that parents can find a list of schools that offer both Horizon and or Nest?
So, no, because this is a centralized application process. So part of what we do, we have many schools across, we have 83 Nest schools and we have 61 Horizon schools across the city from K to 12. What we look at is that when you apply to the programs, you apply to the programs. Our team makes the determination on which program. The other portion of it is that when we do placements, it is in the Turning 5 season, it is, we want to pick the school that's closest to your home, because we look at having transportation and being part of that community as really being a very vital portion of a family feeling connected to a school. So in that sense, there is the location. It does make a big determination on where we are placing students. We also want to look at, if we're placing students at an upper grade, it's really where we have vacancies. So that, I think, is a really important thing. We also want to just call this out. There are many schools that will have ASD, Nest, and Horizon programs. What we really, when we're talking about those tours, is that, you know, we're really protective of the kids that are in the program, because tours are disruptive. We also are very, very protective of that. There are children in that classroom that have an educational classification of autism that, you know, we want to be protective of their HIPAA, like in that sense. And like, we are very fierce about that, because ultimately we want to just make sure that our programs are running with fidelity and making sure that we are protective of the students and not disrupting their instruction.
Okay. I do have a question from a parent that's, it's in Spanish, so I'll translate. She says that her son's school has sent the ASD application, she didn't specify which program, on her behalf about a year ago. And until now, she hasn't received any response. She would like to know how long typically the response is.
Please have mom just get
Contact
her email
you?
address and her child's name.
Okay.
And I'll follow up when it gets to the office.
Fantastic. Thank you.
Okay.
Then we have another question from Miss Andrea. She says, for the kindergarten Nest classroom, how many kids are in that classroom?
Great question. So this is a micro inclusion class. So there are 4 Nest seats. So we have 4 Nest students and 8 general education students. So it's really small. It's 12 children in total. The with the Nest program, what happens is that we're slowly adding, as the children integrate through the program, slowly adding both general education first and then Nest kids later. So our Nest class for 2nd through 5th grade can be up to 16 till 3rd grade, and then up to 18 or 20 for 5th grade. It really looks different in each one of the schools. There are many schools that have more students in them because of their population of their district, where there's like more. We try to be really, really equitable on that, like looking at that. We will ask some of our Nest families to be as accommodating as we expect everybody else to be for our Nest families, and maybe have an extra general education student or 2 because of what's going on in their building in terms of capacity in the other ICT classes. But we really want to make sure that those classrooms are balanced. By middle school, it's 25 kids, 20 general education students and 5 Nest students. And by high school, we're up to 25 general education students and 6 Nest students. So we are really looking at like a very large class for high school, 31.
Okay, she has a follow-up question, just stating, is there enough room for all the kids with ASD in the Nest and Horizon programs? There's a lot of kids that probably meet the criteria for eligibility. So it's more like a statement, but
yeah, that's, part of what we do is we encourage families to apply to the program. And that's why we do these outreaches here, so that we can spread the word about the programs. The other portion of it is that, we do look to place as many students as we can. We want to have full programs. There are times that we do have vacancies. So It's not always, we're always looking to build program capacity in response to the need. And that's certainly something I know our chancellor and senior leadership is very dedicated to and committed to the expansion.
Thank you, Kate. Now let me just check the Q&A box. 1 second, Cody. Let me just read this one question and then I'll get to you. Someone wants to know if there's a wait list for Horizon/Nest.
So typically, we would look at applications for students. If we don't have seats, we would look for applications to try to find vacancies for that student. I think part of it is that sometimes we have a latitude at maybe middle or high school. Like if you applied in 4th grade and we don't have a seat, we would like to come back and get you for middle school. Ultimately what we're trying to do is make sure kids get that placement. And we also live in New York. And in New York, we're seeing folks that are moving out of the city, unfortunately, and moving from like one borough to another. And that happens. So like our placement process can be very fluid because, after the pandemic, we've seen just certain districts have lost students while others have gained. So we're really trying to make that, to meet the need where we can.
Thank you, Kate.
My question is just, do you have any open spots at the moment for 3rd grade?
It can be challenging for 3rd grade because it is that's when we tend to see an uptick in applications between 2nd and 3rd, because that's like, and I'll say this as a speech pathologist, it's generally where the academics kicks up. So we're looking at and this is something somebody taught me many years ago, that we work on learning to read from, kindergarten through 3rd grade. And then we're reading to learn from 3rd grade on. So that's a portion where sometimes that academic demands becomes more than a child's needs and they need additional support. So before I leave, Will.
And then just a follow-up question from the one I asked earlier. They're asking, when would be the best time for apply for a middle school seat? Beginning of 5th grade? They just want to make sure they're doing the right thing, and they say thank you so much for the presentation.
No problem. It's middle of I think absolutely. If this is for 6th grade for next year, they should be applying now. So in 5th grade.
And then we do have a very personal question. So Miss Brisma, I do see that you wrote in the chat, but just because we are broadcasting live on Facebook, I'd rather not share the specific information you've shared with me right now. However, I do encourage you to reach out to the Nest team and Kate.
You can give her my email.
I will give you her email. You can reach out with your inquiry. And yeah, that is about it for the chat and the Q&A box in terms of questions. If anybody here in person still has a question, just let me know.
Great. Thank you. Really appreciate the time. Monique, my son is Oliver. We submitted our app, so we're excited and anxiously awaiting news. Just wanting to, I guess, and this is probably a tough question because I know every year is probably different, but rate of acceptance at the kindergarten level ballpark.
We want 100%.
I like it. Okay.
Yeah, we want to make sure we want to have every seat accounted for. We want to make sure, we've definitely worked with our teams in both Nest and Horizon to look at, the impact of the pandemic. We're looking at loss, not being able to get, speech services when, what does that impact look like? I, as a speech therapist, can only fathom what it might have been like for a family trying to secure EI services 2 years ago or 3 years ago, and thinking about the quality of doing, any online virtual servicing. Just, I don't know that I would have been able to do it. And, and I think that, that portion weighs into a lot of what we're doing. Because we know that this has been impactful and that, things are in response to, and we always look at it with good intervention in Nest or Horizon and Ames, kids will make progress if they're placed appropriately. So I always say to families, really be open to the process. Sometimes you're thinking one program and we're thinking another, because we want to make sure it's successful. It's not that, we're not taking your thoughts or considerations for that. We just want to make sure that if we're placing a child, that we're placing them appropriately so that they stay and thrive.
Yep.
When they're not placed appropriately is when we see behavior, and then also thinking about the social emotional toll, not only on the family, but on the child itself, himself or herself. Because there's a portion, like when things are really not working for you, you feel it's because of you, or because we're putting undue stress on that student. And I think that that's something that we really want to be aware of.
All right, and just one
Yeah,
more comment or question. When let's say we're at the fourth quarter of the process, is that like May, June?
Okay, so that's a really good
typically?
question. So sometimes our processes line up where the observation is done before your turning 5 meeting. Sometimes it doesn't. So you might, what I often tell families is when you have your turning 5 meeting, you are letting that you're going to, when you have your first meeting with that psychologist, you're saying, I've applied to ASD programs. This is the person I'm working with from the office. So we have 3 psychologists and one of the borough managers who handles and supports Staten Island. They are all managing the turning 5 process for each borough that you live in. So you will have a point of contact on the ASD team that is one of the psychologists. So if you live in Manhattan, it's Manhattan and Bronx, it's Dr. Marina Trabick. If it's Brooklyn, it is Dr. Teresa Janelle Harding. And then for Queens, it is Dustin Ross. I will, everybody will get your emails today. The other portion of this is that when you have this outreach, you're going to be talking to that person, and that piece is, so you're going to maybe have to have your turning 5 meeting prior to your acceptance into either the Nest or Horizon program. You are going to go into that meeting and ask for the things you think your child's going to need. You're going to advocate for your child. You're going to have those conversations. Hopefully we're coming back with another offer. That's what our usual process is. So I say, for families, we need to advocate, and that's your job. Your sole mission is to make sure your child gets what they need. And we want to respect that. So when you go in and talk to your turning 5 team, you're going to go and say, hey, I think this is the kind of speech I think. Those are the things that you're going to look at. But what we'll do then, if we're accepting after a family has toured the program, we will then work with the turning 5 team to update the IEP as quickly as possible. And that's really to get the transportation on and to make sure it's reflective of the program that they're in.
And it's the same for Ames. And the points of contact would be myself or Dr. David Borg, if anyone is interested.
Thank you. And then we just have a few final questions. One question is, can this profile of a student change from Horizon to Nest?
It can. Part of what we look at is we have had some students, it's not always, it's really contingent on what that child's ready for, because it is a much larger class. There are students that have successfully transitioned from Horizon to Nest, we're ready for that inclusion. But I think it's also built upon the inclusion opportunities that they had in their, say, for instance, in their prior elementary placement for Horizon. So meaning that if that's a child, we want to get them those experiences, because going from a class with 8 students to a class with 25 or 30, would be very different. So we want to make sure that that is done with through data, so that we know that this is working in over an extended period of time, and in many instances, years. So we've looked at this as that we've had, flexible programming for kids in the Horizon program for math, for instance, or science for 2nd, 3rd, and 4th grade. And then we're thinking about what that transition could look like, maybe to a different program for middle school.
Okay. And then we just have one final question from Ms. Rochelle Singh. She states, I had applied for Nest for kindergarten for my daughter, but at the time she was having behavioral issues and wasn't supported. At the time, she was told that their application would be left open, and she's currently in a D75 program and is doing great. They want to know if they would have to do a new application.
I would just want, if we can get the parents' information, it'd be helpful.
Sure. Ms. Singh will be reaching out to you.
We oftentimes will, so I also talk to families about the District 75 program. I started my career in District 75. So when I became a speech pathologist and I worked in District 75 my first few years in school in the New York City Department of Education then. But I also think that if you get the right levels of support, kids thrive. And a portion of it is that we often have kids come from District 75 into Horizon, into Nest in some instances where it's been appropriate. So, I say be open to the process, be open to working with folks that really only want the best interest of your child. The Turning 5 team, the psychologists, everybody's here to try to help. And we want to make sure that, essentially that your child gets what they need.
Thank you, Kate. And then just the final question from Ellen. She states, should we wait for the Turning 5 meeting before applying to Nest or Horizon, or should we start applying?
No. They should apply now, like today. Okay.
There are a tremendous amount of applications that come in.
Wonderful. Well, thank you guys. So right now, I don't see any more questions in our chat or Q&A. If we have any last minute in-person questions, this is definitely the time. And if not, thank you so much for everybody for being here today, both in person and via Zoom. For those on Zoom, you'll be receiving the PowerPoint and the Facebook Live link to rewatch the presentation in a follow-up email today. As well, we ask that you stay on just for a little bit longer, just to fill out our little poll. It really helps our Parent Center to know what it is that parents are looking for, how we can serve you best. Yeah, thank you so much for being here. For those in person, just stay a little bit longer. And thank you so much to Mark and Kate for such a wonderful presentation. Thank you.
Sure, thank you.